I was 16, just walking home from school like any other day. The sun was still high, the sea breeze soft against my face, but the boardwalk felt emptier than usual, too quiet, strange, because that place was always full of people. Still, I didn't think much of it. It was the same route I always took, the one that felt safe, familiar. I walked slowly, glancing at the shop windows and the trees swaying with the wind, lost in my thoughts, when something caught my eye, a white minivan. It was moving way too slow enough to make me uncomfortable. At first I thought it was nothing, but the feeling didn't leave. That kind of intuition every girl learns early. When something's wrong, the body knows before the mind does. I tried to stay calm, pretending not to notice, but when I looked again, the van was still there, keeping pace with my steps. Then the driver's window rolled down halfway, and a man leaned toward me, asking if I knew where the nearest shopping mall was. His voice was strange, too forced, like he was pretending to sound friendly. I noticed movement inside the van. Someone was in the back, but I couldn't see who. He smiled, but it wasn't a normal smile. It didn't reach his eyes. It was cold, empty. I pretended not to hear and kept walking. He called again, louder this time, with an edge of irritation in his tone, saying it was impossible for a girl my age not to know where the mall was, and that if I helped him, he'd make it worth my while. My stomach turned. I tried to ignore him, but then he said something that made my blood run cold. He asked if I wanted to make easy money, said he knew a photographer, that I was pretty enough to model for him, that I could make a lot of money just posing for a few photos. That's when the fear hit me for real. I didn't think twice. I rushed into the first cafe I saw. People are so weird, I whispered to myself, trying to laugh it off, but my hands were shaking. I hadn't understood how serious it really was. Not yet, but still. I called my mom. My fingers could barely hold the phone as I told her what had happened, my voice trembling while I watched the street through the glass window. She told me to stay where I was, to tell someone at the cafe, and wait until she got there. But I didn't want to. I thought maybe I was overreacting. The van wasn't outside anymore, and I didn't want to draw attention for nothing. After a few minutes, I hung up and took a deep breath. The cafe felt too small, too bright, so I decided to keep walking. It was still daylight. I just wanted to get home. But step by step, that same cold feeling crawled back up my spine. I looked behind me, and the van was there again, this time closer, faster. My heart froze. They must have gone around the block, I thought. I caught a glimpse of the license plate, tried to memorize it, but panic made everything blurry. Without thinking, I turned around and ran back toward the cafe. My legs shook, my chest ached, every breath scraping against my throat. The moment I got inside, an employee rushed over, asking if I was okay. I told him everything, that I thought I was being followed. His face changed instantly, all the color drained from it, and he said they should call the police, that there had been other reports in the area, girls my age, vanishing without a trace. That's when I broke down crying. My mom arrived minutes later, and we went straight to the police station, filed a report, but there was nothing. No record, no plate match, no leads. I didn't go to school for a week, and when I did, I changed everything. My route, my transport, my schedule. For months, I avoided that road, and even now, whenever I see a white van driving too slow, my body still reacts, as if it remembers how close it was to ending another way. I was around 12, maybe 13. It was one of those cloudy afternoons that make even small towns feel ghostly. My grandmother lived in the countryside, and I loved going there. Everything felt like an adventure. We used to run through backyards, climb trees, and make up stories about the neighbors. It was always innocent. Until that day, there were 7 of us. We were bored, hungry, and craving guavas. One of the girls said she knew a place, an old man's property. She whispered that he had a guava tree full of fruit, but no one dared to go there. She said he was dangerous, a brute, He owned knives, machetes, and axes, kept them all sharp, and had once hurt people before. That made it sound like a challenge. We decided to make it a game. Sneak into his yard, climb the tree, grab a few guavas, and run. Whoever did it would get candy as a prize. I said yes right away. I always wanted to look brave. I ended up in the middle of the group. The first one could be caught, the last one too. I thought I was safe there. We crawled through the side of the fence, careful, quiet. I could already feel my pulse in my ears. Then came the barking, loud, angry. My stomach dropped. The girl who planned this hadn't mentioned a dog. I froze, scanning the place. But we were already too far in to turn back. We moved between the trees, not too fast, not too slow. The kind of rhythm you learn from fear. When we finally saw the guava tree, my heart almost jumped out of my chest. That mix of fear and excitement was addictive. One of the girls climbed up first, then me, while another stayed on the ground to watch. The barking didn't stop, but it stayed at a distance. It gave us hope. Maybe the dog was tied, and then we heard him. A man's voice, rough, hoarse, filled with anger, telling the dog to shut up. The barking only got louder. He sighed, like he was talking to it, and said something that made my blood run cold. "What's wrong, boy? Hungry? Haven't had meat in a while, huh?" The air left my lungs. My hands trembled around the branch. I grabbed a few guavas as fast as I could, cutting myself on the bark without even noticing. When I looked down, the girl who'd been on the ground was gone. Just gone. My chest tightened. Had she run? Was she caught? Then his voice came again. Closer this time. "Who's there? I can hear you." He said he had a machete. Said he'd let the dog loose if we didn't come out. I could hear him walking. Slow, heavy steps. The girl above me started crying quietly. She begged me to go down so we could run. I whispered that it was stupid, but I climbed down anyway. Every sound felt too loud. Our feet brushing leaves, our breath, the heartbeat that seemed to echo through the trees. Then came a sharp metallic thud. He had thrown the machete. It hit a tree nearby. "Show yourselves," he shouted. "You'll regret stepping into my land." I saw him then, just a glimpse, moving toward the dog, still barking like it wanted to rip the world apart. He was going to unleash it, and that was my signal to run. I ran until my chest burned, branches tearing at my arms, bare feet pounding the dirt. My sandals were gone. I must have lost them halfway. Behind me, the barking grew louder, closer, desperate. I spotted a section of the wall, cracked and uneven, barely holding up. I didn't think, I just climbed. My hand slipped, skin scraped raw, but I pulled myself up and jumped to the other side. Hit the ground hard, rolled, gasped for air. For a few seconds I couldn't move. Then I heard it. Claws scraping against the other side of the wall, the dog still barking, furious. If I'd hesitated for one more moment, I don't think I'd be here to tell this story. Later, I found out the other girl managed to escape too. She ran in a different direction, closer to the open road. The dog had chosen to follow me. She said she could still hear it from far away, long after she was safe. I don't remember where the guavas ended up. I don't even remember how I got home. I just remember the sound, the barking, the man's voice, and that strange hunger behind his words. It's been years, but sometimes when I eat guava, my stomach still tightens, and for a second, I'm that scared little girl again, running barefoot through the dirt, trying to get away before the dog finally tastes meat. I've been living alone for a little over a year now. A small house, simple and quiet, in a calm neighborhood. I used to love the silence of the nights there. The sound of crickets, the wind rustling through the leaves of the oak tree in my backyard, the smell of wet soil when it rained. It was the kind of peace that made me feel safe. Until the day I realized I wasn't alone anymore. It started with a shiver, a faint unease every time I walked past the living room window. I thought it was just my imagination, but one night, by accident, I looked for a little too long and saw him. Standing under the oak tree, motionless, was a man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a long black coat with a large hood, and something covering part of his face, maybe a balaclava, which made sense since it was cold, but in the dark, it looked more like a mask. The tree's shadow merged with his. He didn't move. The only sign of life was his chest, rising and falling slowly. Breathing. I yanked the curtain shut, trying to laugh it off. It's probably just the neighbor. But when I looked again, minutes later, he was still there. Same spot. Unmoving. The branches swayed in the wind, but he didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. I left the lights on, locked every door. When morning came, the tree was empty. I let out a shaky laugh. It must have been my nerves, but the fear came back. Days later, during a heavy storm, lightning lit up the yard, and he was there again. Drenched still, the hood dripping water, chest rising and falling in the same steady rhythm. I grabbed my phone and called the police. Told them what I saw. The woman on the line asked if he tried to break in. No. Then keep your doors locked and wait. They never came. The next day I called a friend. He thought I was exaggerating but agreed to come over. He checked the backyard, around the tree, along the fence. Nothing. No footprints. No marks. When he left, I tried to tell myself it was all over, but that's when things got worse. 2 days later, coming back from the store, I passed by the oak tree. The ground was damp from the rain, and for some reason I stopped. That's when I saw it. Deep cuts carved into the bark, fresh and uneven, like someone had driven a knife into it over and over. My whole body froze. That same cold crawled up my spine, locking my breath in my throat. I ran inside, dropped the grocery bags, and that's when I noticed it. A thick white card on the floor by the rug. I picked it up with shaking hands. The handwriting was rough, heavy. Just one line written in pen. Didn't like your company. Don't bring him again. The air disappeared from my lungs. My knees went weak. I instantly thought of the cuts on the tree. He'd seen my friend. He'd been watching. The note was a warning. I panicked. Called the police again. Went to the station. They listened, filed a report, said they'd have a patrol car include my street on their nightly rounds. That gave me a small sense of safety. Enough to sleep with fewer lights on that night. But it didn't last. The next morning, before I even had coffee, I heard the postman outside. A new envelope lay by the gate. Inside, a smaller piece of paper folded once. Same handwriting, but shakier, angrier. They can't help you. My whole body went numb. I looked around, heart pounding so loud it hurt. He knew. He knew where I lived. He knew I worked from home. He knew the hours I was there, alone. I was terrified. I couldn't stay. I packed a bag and spent months living at a friend's house, trying to forget, trying to breathe without glancing at the windows every few minutes. When I finally felt ready to return, I did. The street was silent. The oak tree stood there, untouched. No marks. No notes, but the fear never really left me, because deep down, I know he's still out there, and he knows exactly where to find me.